HeroQuest. Deep inside another dimension, face battling barbarians and evil magic on a quest for adventure in a maze of monsters. This is HeroQuest, the fantasy adventure game where winning means mastering the arts of combat.
I'll use my broadsword
And magic.
Fire of wrath.
Discover traps and enemies. Uncover secret doors. Once you get into it, you'll never be the same. HeroQuest.
Back when I was a lad growing up in the 80s and 90s, board games were kind of being phased out as video games became the go-to thing for kids to play. Now, there was a few board games I still love, one of them was Mousetrap, but I was more interested in HeroQuest. Now, HeroQuest was so popular that they eventually, in 1991, released a video game version of HeroQuest on the Amiga 500, and it's that game that we're here to talk about today. So we'll back up a little here to provide a little information on the board game incarnation of HeroQuest for anyone unfamiliar with it. HeroQuest was essentially a way for more casual and younger players to get into the whole Dungeons & Dragons style adventuring that was popular at the time. As we know, Dungeons & Dragons is strictly for nerds, so naturally I always wanted to play it but was put off by the whole roleplay aspect of it. HeroQuest is focused on moving up to 4 characters through a dungeon based on layouts from the instruction booklet, each with their own goal or scenario to complete. One player took the role of the Games Master Morcar, overseeing the placement of enemies, traps and doors based on what the players in the dungeon could see. It was essentially taking the Dungeons & Dragons formula, removing a lot of the stats and roleplay, and focusing on exploration and combat, making it easier for simpletons like me to understand. The video game adaptation makes things even more simple by removing the need for a Game Master as a player. Instead, the Game Master is the computer AI, and he's represented on the screen by this giant scary face here. Note that in some ports the face is less giant and less scary. The other players take control of one of 4 combatants: the warrior, the dwarf, the elf and the wizard. Each has a few different stats and abilities which we'll discuss as we go along. Dice rolls are represented either by a spinning coin that must have some sort of quantum properties in order to have up to 12 sides, and in combat the rolls are done off screen and represented by the skull and shield symbols. It takes a little of the feeling of combat out of the game but does make the whole thing play a little bit quicker. Also, combat is, let's just say, efficient. So action-packed. So, you roll your movement coin and set out on your quest through the dungeon stage you've selected. Each turn you can move and perform one action, be it combat, searching for hidden doors or treasure, or casting a spell. If you click on the map icon, you can see everything your heroes can see and plan your movements ahead. For example, rather than charging into a room, you may want to unlock the door with the keys icon and check the map first. This helps stop you from wandering into a room to find 4 enemies while your teammates are elsewhere. Speaking of teammates, you can play this game as a solo quester, but that may be the trickiest way to go. Dungeons are not rebalanced for one player only, but the rewards in terms of gold can be far greater. You could play with 4 players in total, but as in the board game, there's nothing stopping you from playing as each character yourself, as the game isn't competitively focused. It's more of a fantasy squad based tactics game. So that's the basics of the gameplay down. HeroQuest isn't super complex and that's part of its strength. If ever you do get stuck, you're only a hidden door search or a treasure find away from a solution. And if you've played the board game before now, you'll head into this video game version with a little bit of advanced knowledge. This adaptation of HeroQuest features all the stages from the board game, meaning that if you know the layouts in advance, you're going to have a much easier time. Stages such as Mellar's Maze, which appears to have a dead end in its second room, will be a little less frustrating when you know to do a treasure search on this chair, and to then get another player to search for a door to find the hidden passage right behind it. You'd also know where the room holding all your equipment is on the Legacy of the Orc Warlord stage, and also know to send your dwarf over first, so he can dismantle the trap blocking anyone else from reaching the room quickly with his reacquired toolkit, which is exactly what I didn't do here, causing me to have to send the rest of the party the long way around with no weapons or spells. Gradually the stages get more complex, but if you play them in order, you'll be introduced to the mechanics of searching, exploration, and how to deal with traps and enemies in a nice gradual curve. The game doesn't throw gargoyles and chaos warriors at you right from the start either, which gives you time to buy weapons and armour, boosting your combat and defence potential in preparation. For example, it's a good idea to get your barbarian a broadsword early on so he has an even greater combat ability. The way combat works is pretty simple. Each character has a certain number of dice they will throw. If you throw more skulls than the enemy throws shields, you win. Similarly, if you're attacked, you want to have more shields than they have skulls. You can't see it in this game, but the enemies actually have less chance of throwing a shield, as they need a specific shield icon that is only on one side of the die. But the stronger that enemy is, the more dice they can roll, and the more chance they have to defend successfully. More combat dice for you, the better. So why not give everyone broadswords and plate armour? Well, because not every character can use them. The wizard and elf have limitations on their weapon and armour usage. To balance this out, the wizard can have a total of 3 sets of magic he can use, and the elf has 1 set. Also, if any character equips plate armour, they move at half the speed too, so that needs to be considered as well. As the game goes on, things can get a little bit tricky, and searching for potions becomes a near essential thing to do to keep your team alive. Now, the game never gets ridiculously hard, but if you do fail, with the wonders of modern emulation, you can just have a little save state reload to give you a second chance at that room that you got stuck on. Yes, I discussed emulation there. You see, your options for playing HeroQuest can be a little limiting these days. Old computers are shooting up in price, not to mention some can be a bit of a pain to display on modern TVs. There was no console port released of the game, although a NES version was in development and near finished. In fact, you're listening to the music from that port right now. If you have the Amiga disc, you could try using the Amiga, but as it's over £100 and essentially an emulation box, you may as well just emulate on a PC anyway. Although I do still want an Amiga because, man, I have a box full of Amiga games I can't play these days. The game was released on the Amiga, Atari ST, Amstrad CPC, DOS, Commodore 64 and the ZX Spectrum. I had the Spectrum version as a kid too, and it was pretty solid conversion, so I assume the others are too. There was also an expansion for HeroQuest called Return of the Witch Lord, which provided a few extra stages and enemies. I had this expansion on the ZX Spectrum and remember it having a decent amount of extra content. HeroQuest 2 was released for the Amiga 1200 and Amiga CD32 in 1994, but I can't really speak much on that as I have never played it. Alternatively, there's the Dark Quest games on Steam. The first is pretty simple in its presentation, with it being a top-down based take on the game, and is priced at just £1.99. It recently received a sequel, currently in early access, which looks a lot more like a modern take on the Amiga game, and has got a bit of an expanded scope in terms of presentation quality. Dark Quest 2 even has a level editor, which is an aspect of the HeroQuest board game that is missing from the video game versions. I haven't had a chance to play Dark Quest 2, but I may do a let's play in the future. So that's HeroQuest. It's a little bit slow moving, but that's just how games were back then. If you don't mind playing something a little bit outdated, then you got a fun little dungeon crawling adventure to play here. If you want something a little bit more up to date, then maybe Dark Quest 2 is for you. But as it stands, it's a little bit of a retro classic for me and a fun way to enjoy the board game. So that's all for today. Thank you for watching, guys. Please do the like, comments, describes, all the little things down below. Like, comment and describe, whatever. You know what to do. I'll catch you later. Bye. Hey guys, thanks for watching this HeroQuest Mellow Gaming Recommends episode. Very appreciative of you if you've got to this part of the video. Down the left hand side of the screen you'll see Kyle from Kyle Blame Plays. He recorded all the board game footage for me, which was super nice of him. Thanks Kyle. Do a little click on his annotation there and go check out his channel. He does lots of Let's Plays. He's been playing Chroma Squad and WB2K16 recently. On the right is Ducks Ahoy. You might know her. She's been on the channel before in the Hour of Power videos and a couple of other incidences here and there. She did some colour correction for me on the video, basically, because I messed it up. Anyway, thanks Ducks. Give her a click. Go do her a like. I'll catch you later. Thanks guys. Much appreciated if you watch this far. Bye!